Right.
Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation, and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today, our topic is publishers, problems, and prospects. A publisher is a person or company that is engaged in publishing, offering content to the public. Publisher can refer to a publishing company or organization, an individual who leads a publishing company. Publishing is the activity of making information, literature, music, software, and other content available to the public for sale or for free. Traditionally, the term refers to the distribution of printed works such as books, newspapers, and magazines. With the advent of digital information systems, the scope has expanded to include electronic publishing such as e-book, academic journal, micro publishing, websites, blogs, video game publishing, and the like. The commercial publishing industry ranges from large to thousands of small independents. It has various divisions such as trade, retail, publishing of fiction and non-fiction, educational publishing, and academic and scientific publishing. Publishing is also undertaken by governments, civil society, and private companies for administrative or compliance requirements, business, research, advocacy, or public interest objectives. This can include annual reports, research reports, market research, policy briefings, and technical reports. Self-publishing has become very common. Publishing became possible with the invention of writing and became more practical upon the introduction of printing. Prior to printing, distributed works were copied manually by scribes. Due to printing, publishing progressed hand in hand with the development of books. Books have always been regarded as an important media for the development and promotion of human values. They act as catalysts for the advancement of a nation. They record new ideas, preserve and communicate knowledge, impart education and values, and aid the overall development of an individual. The Chinese inventor Bi Sheng made movable type of earthenware tekara in 1045, but there are no known surviving examples of his work. Around 1415, what is commonly regarded as an independent invention, Johannes Gutenberg invented movable type in Europe, along with innovations in casting the type based on a matrix and hand mold. This invention gradually made books less expensive to produce and more widely available. Early printed books, single sheets and images which were created before 1501 in Europe are known as uncannable or incumula. Eventually, printing enabled other forms of publishing besides books. The history of modern newspapers publishing started in Germany in 1609, while with publishing of magazines following in 1663. Missionaries brought printing presses to sub-Saharan African in the mid-18th century. Historically, publishing has been handled by publishers, although some authors self-published. The establishment of the World Wide Web in 1989 soon propelled the website into a dominant medium of publishing. Wikis and blogs soon developed, followed by online books, online newspapers, and online magazines. The publishing process includes creation, acquisition, copy editing, production, printing, and its electronic equivalent, marketing, and distribution. There are four major types of publishers in book publishing: traditional or commercial publisher. They are more rigid and selective as to which books they publish. If accepted, authors pay no cost to publish in exchange for selling rights to their work. They receive in-house editing, design, printing, marketing, and distribution services and are paid royalties on sales. Modern or self-publishers. Author use self-publishing house to publish their books and retain full rights to their works. Self-publishing houses are more open than traditional publishing houses, allowing emerging and established authors to publish their works. A number of modern or self-publishing houses offer enhanced services. For example, editing, design, and authors may choose which one to use. Authors shoulder pre-publishing expenses and in return retain all the rights to their works, keeps total control, and are paid royalties on sale. Vanity publishers. Presses portray themselves as traditional publishers, but are in fact just a self-publishing services. Unlike genuine self-publishing services, the author is often obliged to use some or all of their additional services, and the press will often take rights to the work part of their contract. Hybrid publishing. A hybrid press or hybrid publisher is a publishing house that operates with a different revenue model than traditional publishing while keeping the rest of the practices of publishing the same. There have been attempts to bridge this gap using hybrid models. No one model has been fully proven at this stage. The question pertains to the role and importance the publishing houses have in the overall publishing processes. It is a common practice that the author, the original creator of the work, signs the contract awarding him or her only around 10% of the proceeds of the book. Such contracts leave 90% of the book proceeds to the publishing houses, distribution companies, marketeers, and retailers. One example of publishers' expenses: 45% to the retailer, 10% to the wholesaler, 10.125% for printing, 7.15% for marketing, 12.7% for pre-production, and 15% approximately to the author in the form of royalties. There is a common misconception that publishing houses make large profits and that authors are the lowest paid in the publishing chain. However, most publishers make little profit from individual titles, with 75% of books not breaking even. Approximately 80% of the cost of a book is taken up by the expenses of preparing, distributing, and printing. On successful titles, publishing companies will usually make around 10% profit, with the authors receiving 8 to 15% of the retail price. However, given that authors are usually individuals, are often paid advances, irrespective of whether the book turns a profit, and do not normally have to split profits with others. It makes them the highest paid individual in the publishing process. India's book market is the sixth largest in the world and second among the English language ones. By Nielsen, the Association of Publishers in India, and the Federation of Indian Publishers, it values the print book market in India, including imports, at $3.9 billion, approximately rupees 26,000 crores. Its compounded annual growth was 20.4% between 2011-12 and 2014-15. Jonathan Stolper, global managing director of Nielsen Book, said that their report was issued. Some of the facts that come to light are very impressive. There are 9,000 publishers, over 21,000 retailers, and 22 official languages. And if you include regional dialects, the total is 1,600. Literacy in India is rising rapidly from 65% in 2001 to 74% in 2011, and it is predicted to reach 90% in 2020. We have not yet received the 2020 data as of now. However, the Indian book publishing sector gets no direct investment from government, a serious roadblock, the report says. Other challenges include the fragmented nature of publishing and book selling, a tortuous distribution system, long credit cycle that makes it difficult to manage cash flows, and increase in direct cost. Piracy is widespread, with every other state in the country being home to stalls selling pirated texts. Consumer data survey shows on an average, people read book 2.1 times a week, while nearly two-thirds read a book occasionally. 55% of the trade sales are of books in English. Books in Hindi are 35% of Indian language sales, but the largest share of these is taken by others, despite what the report identifies as a highly disorganized local publishing sector. India has a very low per capita book consumption. The major reason for this were low literacy rate and disposable income, and to some extent non-availability of books. To discuss today's topic, that is the publishers, problems and prospects. We have a very allied, learned, experienced panel with us. I would like to invite my first guest. He is Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal is the former professor of marketing, innovation and management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI Jamshedpur and California State University, USA. He is president of Indo-Gulf Marketing Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow Boston, EFMD Fellow Paris, and British Council Fellow London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leaders. Welcome, Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, on our show. Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, as you know, the topic today is a very difficult for me, but easy for you. It's a different topic altogether. And the topic is publishers, problems, and prospects. We would like to know your views on this topic, publishers, problems, and prospects. Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, please.
Thank you, and good morning to my esteemed panel of colleagues here. And thank you, Mr. Goel, for such a rich introduction of the topic, which defines not only the limits, but also defines many other things which are useful for us to ponder over, both insights, information, and of course, critique that you have provided of this industry. You begin with the first question, and that is the importance of this particular industry. Let me begin with a very, very poignant story. As I was almost ready to graduate from my college, which was Allahabad University in 1978. And one of my professors, who was probably among the best professors I have seen at that time, who was teaching accounting and finance. So one day when I met him, he was trying to collect from various sources about 5,000 rupees. And I asked him, I said, sir, why do you need 5,000 rupees? It is a very, very large sum. And he said that, Mohan, I need to publish my work as a book, and the publisher wouldn't have enough resources to publish it. So I need to pay for the initial investment into publishing of this particular book. And later on, we hope that book will be sold enough to recover the investment that I have made and my publisher has made. So I said, but why do you need this kind of thing in order to go through so many problems of personal nature? He said, and it is his words, he's no more, I mean, he was one of, may God rest his soul in peace, but he was one of my early influencers in life whom I learned a lot, and every day probably I remember him and his teachings. He said that, Mohan, my promotion, my advancement in my academic life is dependent upon how many books I have published. And this is how the committee will determine that whether I should move from assistant professor to associate professor and associate to full professor. I was, as I said, very young, about 20 years old in just my post-graduation. And I felt very sad. And at the same time, I told him this, that, sir, this is really, really something which I never knew. And I would like to know a little bit more and help you as much as I can. Now, this shows the importance of the publishing industry for persons who are even, so good, otherwise respected so well. The second story of this particular importance, I saw almost, I would say, in mid-90s, when I was on the EFMD, European Foundation for Management Development Fellowship to Paris, and there I was teaching. And one of my very, very good friends, who is now a well-known authority and publisher in marketing, international marketing. So I asked him that, we were comparing our teaching evaluations. And he was talking about my teaching evaluations, that why, so many high grades I had received, while he had received mid grades. So I said, Pierre, don't you feel at any time any competition relating to this? He said, no, Mohan. I am deliberately keeping my focus on teaching at a medium level. I'm not keeping it at the highest level. At the highest level, I'm giving my attention on publishing, because he said that if I'm a great teacher, how many students would know? 50 students, 100 students, 500 students. But if my book is published and people rate it very, very high, then I will be instantly known to thousands people, and more benefits will come to me. Now his was more towards a fame, while the first poignant story was towards personal advancement. In both stories, the common factor was the importance of publishing. The common factor was that publishing brings you not only personal progression but also fame. I'm referring only to one aspect of our life, and that is academic publishing. Of course, there is a wide range of publishing, like public publishing, like newspapers or journal awareness books or novels, so many things that we can talk about. So as far as importance of this industry is concerned, it can never be overestimated. It is absolutely a wonderful industry. But like any industry, and this is the second part of my discussion with you, that like any industry, technology has changed it, and not only changed it, but probably impacted it both for the worse as well as for the better. So let's take the view as a consultant or as a bystander who is interested in you, but not passionately. Passionately means I'm not biased here. I'm dispassionate analyst. And if I look into this, then what are the challenges this particular industry is facing and why? Because many of the challenges that this publishing industry is facing is because of its refusal, and because of its slowness, and because of its reluctance to move with the time, to move with the technology. And there is therefore two types of publishing going on: one, celebrity publishing, and second, I would say, poor man's publishing, which nobody is giving any attention to, while the celebrities are getting millions and millions and millions. And who are these people? These people are celebrities, political leaders, whose whose, I would say, success is measured by the royalty that they receive in advance. And as a result, to some extent, they have become like the movie stars that who take the wonderful money for working in a movie, but eventually what happens? Who loses? The distributors. Who loses? Probably the producers also, to that extent. But the actors do not lose anything in any failed movie. So the same thing is happening in publishing also. That who is losing? Publication houses. Who is losing? Publication houses investors. So therefore, we need to look at the challenges that have been created by themselves, as well as challenges which are beyond their control. So let's take the challenges that they have created. Number one, that these people have been extremely slow to receive the new information and communication technology in their business. They thought it is a fad. They thought that it is something which will come and go, and newspapers, magazines, books, journals, they will here to stay. They were sadly wrong, and not only sadly wrong, they were badly wrong also. So from that point of view, they suffered from that. Number one problem. Number two problem was that they did not know how to retain customers. They were all the time were thinking that because their product is good, therefore people will come and read it. Old philosophy. In our marketing, we always abhor this thinking. If any marketer thinks that my product is good and therefore customers will beat the path to my door, there could be nothing more wrong than this. So therefore, this is the second problem, that they did not know how to retain customers. Why? Because you were not able to create the balance between the product and the user. In other words, demographic disbalance. Demographic disbalance was there between what you are producing and what people were emerging as. Generation X, Y, so many other kinds of formats that we have of this generation. So this is the second problem they had. The third problem was that these people became a single track pony. Single track pony means that they will use only one medium. They were not able to combine what we understand it as multimedia. For instance, I do not know why this particular fact was not being highlighted, that audio books today are growing much more than reading books. Why? Because people are on the move. People would like to do multitasking at the same time. So while they can listen and do things rather than read and cannot do any other thing. So this is another, this is it, that why are you becoming only a single track pony and not a different kind of, what is known as horses for courses, the different horses for different race courses. And this is another problem that publishing company. Next is that somewhere, and you have to forgive me for saying, that knowledge brings arrogance. Extra knowledge brings extra arrogance. Somewhere, these people became a devotee of themselves. They became, I would say, self-devotee. How did they become devotee? They started thinking that medium is the message. While we very well know that message and medium are meant to be separate. But here, media overtook the message. So as a result, the people with good contents and good ideas, they were pushed back by the people who were saleable, who were, having some kind of, as I earlier mentioned, some kind of celebrity ring around them. So all that, I'm afraid, created that. Then, as very correctly you have mentioned, that self-publishing. In our technology, in our terminology, we call it indie publishers. Indie publishers are those who create and publish themselves. Now, many times these indie publishers are, because of what I have just now described as the non-responsive attitude of these publishing houses. And as a result, they said, okay, why not go for self-publishing? Now, imagine that a consumer becomes a competitor of the producer. And where consumer becomes the competitor of the producer, you can imagine at that particular time itself that this industry is likely to have very huge problem. Finally, and that's the thing I would say, and then I would come back if the time allows me. As far as India is concerned, India has always been a value publishing in a country. You said that it is the second largest consumer, but this is probably the second largest of low priced editions, of paperback editions, or of those things which were affordable, or something which could be within the reach of the people in terms of middle class or lower middle class. This particular aspect was, wherever taken, it was successful. Wherever it was forgotten, it was a fail. And a very good example of publication house in this company has been TMH. This Tata McGraw. They did a fantastic job in terms of bringing low budget products, paperback editions, making it a little bit easier, being very kind and fair to the authors, those kind. While there have been some certain publishers, which you have to forgive me for saying, have been black sheep from the author's point of view. So there are some self-inflicted goals, and there are certain environmental changes. The net result is that publication industry is at the crossroad, and that crossroad is how to become better at what consumers want. In other words, consumption behavior of the consumers must guide them rather than my philosophy, my legacy, my past, or this is how I have been doing. I'm sorry, that is very good, but that was yesterday. Today and tomorrow, you have to go with the consumer. For instance, just giving you one example, that there are stories which are written, But in that particular story, the time to read that particular story is not mentioned. Now imagine that you have given something to a person and it is not written 1 minute to read. Now a person will read 1 minute or 2 minutes. But when you do not give any particular time to read, people do not know, oh my God, I don't know how long will it take or stuff like that. Now this is called consumption oriented customization. So finally, the thing which I would like to say is that this industry has failed, in my opinion, at the altar of their self-evaluation, environmental synchronization, and lastly, mass customization. Mass customization means that you have not been scaly enough and you have not been customized enough to the people. So you can be big at the same time, you can be relevant to different sections at the same time. So rather, instead of doing the mass scaling, you are doing mass customization. This will give you the very, very good benefit of both size, scale, and customer calibration. Thank you, Mr. Lal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. And what Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal says that these publishers failed in India, especially because there are few black sheeps in the publication system. And he says because of that, and they have not updated themselves. They are not updating. They are not doing some research work, even for the publishing. Okay, what things are required by the consumer, because it's a consumer driven market. And he says that the publishing is such a thing. Definitely it is not a profitable, like he has given the example of the movies. He says the actors or actresses, they are earning money whether the picture movie fails or succeed. So in the same way, the authors are getting their money whether the book is going to be a hit or fail on the shelf. So according to Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, one has to update themselves with the market trend. New innovations are coming. If you will not change your publishing skills, then you will not be able to succeed. And that fault lies with the publishers more than anyone else. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, for giving your very high, frank views about the publishers' problems and prospects. Now I would like to invite my next guest, and he's Professor Dr. K. Sankaran. Professor Dr. K. Sankaran is the Director of Justice K.S. Hegde Institute of Management, Niche. He is B.Tech Honors from IIT Kharagpur, PGDM from IIM Bangalore. He has done PhD from Kent State University, USA. He has several years of academic experience in India, US, UK, Middle East, and East Asia. He started his career with Tata's. He has several years of experience in management, consulting, and project management. Dr. Sankaran has widely published his articles in highly rated international journals such as Strategic Management Journal and Journal of Marketing Management, and many others. Currently, he is researching in the area of higher education, governance, and androgeography. Welcome, Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, on our show. Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, you have heard what Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal has spoken. Now, we would like to know from you the publishers, problems, and prospects. Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, please.
A very good morning, Lalji. It's always a pleasure to be on your program. And I'm indeed most enthusiastic to be here to hear Dr. Mohan Agrawal and Dr. Asif Ali Syed. This is not exactly a subject that I have really pondered over because I think I've been at the receiving end. I've not been a publisher, but I've been have dealt with book publishers as well as publishers of research journals, as well as popular magazines. All of them have been actually kind to me. I've got some wonderful feedback actually for some of the articles I've written, most often with rejection, but always help me to improve my work. Now, I just want to very quickly, you said about 12 minutes, so I'd like to very quickly talk on two different things. One, what is really the problem, which I think Dr. Agrawal has already dealt on, and also he has provided some solutions. So I'm going to just touch on some of these things in terms of the actual response. I'm going to look at it from the point of view of, what is the basic understanding that uh, people should have. And it's a kind of, it's my view, and it's a very nuanced way that I should speak about this, because who am I to really talk about publishing when I'm not even in the industry? But then I'm looking at uh, various industries as a management academic, um, and we see a lot of trends that are happening. And so my comments would be based on such an understanding how things change across time, irrespective of what the industry really is about. So the first thing is really, I think there is less need for traditional publishing today, because we get a lot of information from our colleagues, from our friends, from our WhatsApp, the Facebook, and the Twitter. Now the danger is that we also get a lot of information that is false. So actually, the traditional role of a publisher in terms of giving out truth is really not uh, I mean, it has changed really, because we are seeking information from different places. And here you have publishers who are also actually driven to take certain views which are essentially, ideological in nature. So I think the whole world is going through some kind of a conversion in terms of information explosion, and more than information explosion as to what should be taken and what should not be, and kind of having tremendous amount of confusion. So civilizationally, we are going through this conundrum, and it's very important to actually touch base with one's own conscience, I guess, and then not really play the popularity game. We see a lot of the you know great people who have done so well in different fields getting into trouble because of one tweet, for instance. So these are the times. So there is really less need for traditional publishing. That's the one thing. I'll come to some solutions later. Second thing is the attention span is so little now. Now, before we start an article, we need to have everything laid out, as Dr. Agarwal said about, how long is this going to take? I mean, typically, for a normal reader, that really helps. So the first paragraph also is an abstract of the whole thing that's going on, and beyond that, the person reads only if there is, specific interest in the area, in the industry, and so on. So the attention span is really, really less. Perhaps we are forced us we are forced ourselves to do things very quickly. So it's probably not exactly attention span, but it's more about having to do so many things in so little time, overall. uh, Third is ideology is taking over everywhere. I mean, there is a new. Obviously, we all see this new tribalism that's coming, new nationalism, new jingoism that's on. So there is really no place for a person who is speaking out from his heart or conscience. So that's a very, very interesting thing, because people have no time. The reader has no time to really ponder over the nuances. So it's very, very grossly, accepted or rejected. So that is a very big problem for publishers, because how do you in a typical popular press 1,000 word article, how do you bring about the nuances? Of course, in a research article you can probably do that. Even there, you get into some kind of trouble because you may have misinterpreted the other person and so on. So this whole inadequacy of popular language to convey things so quickly is becoming a problem, because we have become so sophisticated. We, before the other person opens the mouth, we know what he's going to say. So some kind of great skilling is happening over here, and new generations are facing an extremely nuanced world out there. So in the midst of it, we have this ideological fights, and the post. I think this right now, what's happening to me is, with due respect to my friends in the Western world, it's a post-colonial kind of syndrome that's happening, because it didn't end with the Second World War. I think decolonization is happening all over the world, and so it's part of that, creation of the, I would say, Jung's individuation that's happening at the individual level. So I'm very positive about this, but then it also comes with a lot of inconveniences, because this churning is going on right now. There's also a problem of piracy, and there's the Turnitons, and so we have a whole lot of issues. So we are spending a lot of time in kind of I would say, disciplining, which is also required, especially as an academic, as a writer, as an author, as a research person and teacher. It's very important to look at many different aspects of publishing, and that also has to be taken care of by the publishers. So the publishers are facing a whole lot of different issues, from technology, from geopolitical and social changes that are happening. um, Economics is also making a huge impact today, and there is also, the new avatars. We never had Facebook and Twitter to tell us what's happening in different parts of the world just a few years ago. So I think I have a three-point solution to this, if I may. It's at a very broad level, but I think if you have time, of course, this is not for this particular platform, but I think there is some deep introspection that's required. And I was in consulting, management consulting, and I think the most important thing is to really realize what is happening. So it's about, removing, I would say, with due respect, it's for me too, it's about removing avidya in a way. So once we have the situation clear, the prescriptions will emerge automatically because we have asked the right questions. So for me, there are these 3 points that I came up with the last one day. I mean, after I was, told to be here, and I could not refuse Lalji, Goelji. So these are my tentative answers in a way. One thing is, this industry has to realize that there is a deep structural transformation happening in the industry. And we have noticed those people who realize the structural transformation in the industry happening and are willing to, come out and act, are the people who succeed in this. So what I'm trying to say is that, no more are they, is the old business model valid. So the structural transformation is the introduction of bloggers and vloggers and all kinds of different people over there who are trying to establish their identity on the about themselves on the net. So, as social as we are, today the sociality is shown by the number of likes we get, or dislikes for that matter, we get on something that we write, and from people we respect, and people whom we, kind of probably grudgingly respect because they disagree with you. So in this kind of an environment, there are many players, and there are many stakeholders. Stakeholders, not just the reader and the distributor. There are too many other stakeholders. So there is a structural transformation. I'm using this word structural transformation from the industrial organization perspective, which is about how the different industries kind of change. So new avatars are going to emerge, and the old ones would die, for instance. Okay, so I think if the structure of this industry is mapped, we will find that it's more important to understand bloggers and vloggers. And I, for one, I do some blogging just to tell my students about certain things. In fact, I was taught blogging by students, so I'm very proud of that. So I think that, for instance, there's a tremendous scope for bloggers in one field coming together and creating books and matter, which can be recorded and kept as books, for instance. Now, I really don't see any kind of publisher now actually being a consolidator, um, uh, or aggregator of blogs. I think there's tremendous scope for this. Pictures, vlogging, I think there is tremendous scope, because at the end of the day, we are looking at, creating, be a social animal. And that's often missing in our geographical front. So if you can have people's similar thinking brought together, of course you can find some people on the net, and sometimes you may have big uh, groups of people you are associated with. But I think it's important, as an academic, as a person who writes, I think it's very important to find similar sounding people. And so there is a lot of scope for these kind of aggregations that is possible. um, and also, it also, I think, is going to, if it's going to be done seriously, that also will be opportunity to kind of uh, be antidote to these one-off information shots that are given off in Twitter or Facebook, and then you have no way to defend yourself, because it'll take probably a whole lifetime to say what paradigm you're coming from, why are you saying it, because especially now there is this great discussion between the West and the East. Some of the dualistic understanding that has come out from the West is being challenged today. So you have this post-truth world, for instance, which I'll come to the next point. So, so that is the next point actually. Understand that it's a post-truth world, and nobody, no expert is really a person who can say what the truth is, because truth is completely relative. And if you see the research directions in the last few years, you have the qualitative research, you have ethnocentric research, you have you have all kinds of phenomenological research and so on. All this is pointing to a new paradigm where the positivism of the past, where X is this, Y is this, clearly define something. Nobody can anymore clearly define some of the exceedingly complex ideas. So social science has to really come up and face these issues, and I think language is the only way to do that. Whatever language, I mean, it could be in any language for that matter. So what I'm saying, this post-truth world has to be negotiated differently by publishers, according to me. One straight solution, I mean, coming from very superficial thinking perhaps, is right now it's all ideological. You know what which group Time belongs to, what Washington Post belongs to, and so on. But why is it that we are not looking at clusters of people with similar interests? There may be something in architecture, there may be something in, but I'm still looking for something where my kind of different interests, where there's a cluster where I can really read some really top articles from different people, and also where the critical element is also there, where my point of view is also questioned. I'll just take another 2 minutes, sir. Yeah, yeah.
All right, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So that is the second thing. Understand the post-truth world and our need to actually negotiate truth, because that is fundamentally human. We might be having some compulsive behaviors of wanting to do this, that, and all that. And today the world is full of such compulsions where we are made to do certain things. But at the end of the day, as human as we are, we are also always looking for eventually, the finest in life, whether it's truth or beauty or goodness or fairness. So I think this post-truth world is very, very challenging, but I think there's a way for people with similar interests to be brought together, and that will include scientists, it will include humanitarian people, all different people. I probably am a little biased towards the academic world, but I'm sure that this exists even in carpentry, for instance. It can happen in pottery. So there's a lot of scope for bringing such people, amazing people with all kinds of skills at different levels. I think they can be brought together by the publishers, because they can be the point where they come together. Third is, again, I think publishers have to see themselves as knowledge management professionals. Right now, they're not seeing themselves, according to me, as knowledge management professionals. You take any of these, the so-called great publishers from the West who have such a fantastic hold on academic research, but look at the kind of pricing that they have. Nobody can afford it in this country, for instance. If they have a different business model of having, a little less margin, or probably fairly low margin, but huge volume. There is a huge democratization process that's going on in the world today. So all the biggies of the world have to realize that today, with this internet, what's happening over here, there's hardly any difference between the West and the East, actually, in many ways. I mean, we can see that, I can give a lot of anecdotal evidences to say that the academic world, in terms of real quality, is almost as good as the best in the West, provided we look at value systems of this place, and rearrange our so-called compulsive ways of looking at reality. So what I'm saying is there's tremendous scope for syndicated research, you know, clusters being identified with similar interests, and new business models. I mean, a very good example, of course, all of you would agree, is the Google. I mean, the consumer doesn't pay, and you have yet it doing so well. So why can't publishers? Because they have this most, you know, um, sublime of resources, which is knowledge, and that can be handled in so many different ways, because the more you give, the more it grows. But I think, as Professor Mohan said, there's a lot that they can do better if only they stop looking at information and wisdom as commodities. So we need to think about new ways of reaching out. And there are reactions. Everybody knows about, Alexandra Elbakyan, the Sky Hub person. Everything is available, kind of thing. In some countries, it's banned, but in India, it's not, for instance. And so these are all reactions against having to pay $30 to read an article that I have myself written. So there seems to be something, something fundamentally incorrect about that, I think. So they need to look at, the publishers have to look at their own business models and kind of see what is really going to enhance, the social reach. And I'm pretty sure with a little bit of cleverness, their total money that they make will be in fact more, because you're talking about huge lot of people being available, and they need, so they have to re-examine their revenue models and business models. So with that, I will stop, sir. Thank you very much. If there's an opportunity, I'll be very happy to take, any other questions emerging from this. I'm talking at a fairly, at this level, at a level. But I think if that realization is there, it's not difficult to come down to, you know, the questions that need to be answered at a very, very company level. But they will have to, face their own conscience, their own limitations, and then come up with something, innovative, new, and forget the old habits, so to say. So I'm saying this with humility. This applies to academicians. We are facing tremendous amount of competition, and so I'm telling my students, if competitive strategy can be taught by Harvard professor Michael Porter, Professor Shankaran has no role there. I'll be very happy to sit and listen to him and actually kind of, I can be critical. I mean, I have, I can bring about a great discussion in the classroom. That's the way things are going. So I think uh, we need to understand things that are happening, and keep aside the past glory and hubris, and get on with this new bold world, which youngsters are, of course, most ready. Thank you, sir, again for this opportunity. We'll be back.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shankaran, for giving your views. And Dr. Shankaran is very clear. He says that until unless the publishers will change their method of working, it's not possible, because he has given example of Google and all Twitter, where they says in the blogging, he says when everything is available for free of cost, why anybody would like to pay a huge amount for reading the same article? And he has given a suggestion that the why not publishers come out with some new ideas where they can trap the new market, the entire market with low profits, low margins, but give more and more knowledge and wisdom to the public. And that is only possible if they will reform, they will recast, or they will transform their own industry in a drastically way. Otherwise, it is not possible to compete in this particular world, which is running so fast, changing every day with new ideas, with new concepts. Until unless the publishers will not change it, their own things, it is not possible to compete. And that's why the publishing industry, the publishers are facing lots of problems in India. And for that, they have to think, they have to change. Even he has given an idea like lots of blogs are coming. Why not they consolidate those blogs, try to see to it that it will be of different blogs, but it can be of become a wisdom or knowledge for the others. I can add only one thing, Dr. Shankar, here is that we are doing this media conference for last almost 11 months now, from 22nd March. And I am also receiving lots of appeal and the request from many of academicians. They says, why not you publish these media conferences on a particular subjects or different subjects which are similar, club them so that it will be advantageful for the students or for those who want to study. But the problems comes, who is going to do that? See, that this is the problem in India. You might be a good author, you might be a good writer, but if you want to go to a publishing house, they are not interested of your writing. They want to see the sellability. like like the companies used to see the employability of a student. Similarly, the publishing house wants to see the sellability of the author, and that's why the new authors are facing lots of problems. Thank you very much, Dr. Shankaran, for giving your views. I am sure the publishers will take cue from what you have said, and they may adopt some methods so that they will be, otherwise this industry, and especially after this during the COVID-19, where I know many of the publishers, their books, their credit limits exhausted because those who have supplied it has not come back. The money, neither the money has come back, and those books become old. You know that the trend is like this. Once it is a 1 year old, nobody would like to read. The new books are coming, new things are coming, and especially with the this Kindle thing, people wants to read there almost free of cost. Thank you very much, Dr. Sankaran, for
Thank
giving
you.
your views. Now I would like to invite and introduce my next guest, and he is Dr. Asif Ali Sayyed. Dr. Asif Ali Sayyed is the Associate Professor Marketing, Department of Business Administration, FMS&R, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. He is a full-time faculty for the last 18 years and teaches e-marketing, retail marketing, entrepreneurships, and export-import process and documentation. He is also the founding team member of the South Asian Federation for Entrepreneurial Education and Research, SAFEER. Prior to joining academics, he had a brief industry association with Shell and Phoenix Electrics, authoring publications in more than 60 reputed national and international journals. He is as well as a reviewer for many. Also being widely traveled, he is a presenter and invited keynote speaker in both in national and international conferences. A visiting faculty is several reputed institutes like NCH, MCT, Noida, EDI, Ahmedabad, NIF, HIMS, IIFT, and Royal University of Bhutan. He does consultancy and corporate training, beside being a full-time research guide for a number of techno management research projects. The 25 plus research projects guided by him for PhDs include infrastructure and alternate energy ventures, public sector undertaking projects, small and medium enterprises related, retail and electronic marketing, along with social and green marketing group projects. Welcome, Dr. Asif Ali Sayyed on our show. Dr. Sayyed, you have heard what the earlier panelists, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal, as well as Professor Dr. K. Sankaran has spoken and given their views about the problems and prospects of the publishers. Now we would like to know publishers, problems and prospects. Dr. Asif Ali Sayyed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel, for such kind words. It was really very interesting to listen to my friend, philosopher and guide, Professor Mohan Lal Agarwal, and of course, Professor Shankaran. Thank you very much. I would like to look into this issue and the problems and perspectives of publishers, both from the orientation of the industry as well as from the dimension of the people who basically are in the process of getting their articles and published in these different journals. Now, we must understand the genesis of these problems and challenges arise from the orientation. That is, why exactly is it that a person would like to get it published? The story shared by Professor Mohan Lal Agarwal forms the basis for the reason for publishing, and especially in our culture and geographical domain, where basically we are all trying to rush to get our works published in these top tier journals for post PhDs or pre PhDs, because of we're looking at areas of selection, promotion, upward mobility, or peer recognition. Now, with this as the focus, we are basically forced upon with a focus that either we publish or we perish. This was the credo on the basis of which we have to actually publish, and there exactly from the pressure from the different segments that you have to publish. Now, you must understand that there are certain type of challenges that Indian authors are facing. One is poor training. Because I'm speaking from the perspective as a reviewer for some of these, and as a joint editor for some of these publishing houses, where exactly I have given my services for evaluating the different type of works. Also, we are challenged with weak ethics, and we try to create poorly designed researches. That exactly is the reason why we fail to see many of the work actually see the light of the day, which is not there in the context of the peer pressure, or this sort of pressure from all the domains is not there in different environments. And of course, coupled with the challenges of the new technology, the pressure seems to keep on mounting in terms of the challenges that we are as authors are facing. Now, that basically creates a lot of problems for us as well as the publishers per se, because I do understand that there are challenges which exactly publishers are facing, be it in terms of economic constraints or time constraints or article constraints. But then there are certain problems that we as Indian authors generally face, is that we fail to get that place in that notch in Indian in these international journals. Now, what really happens is that exactly has created a lot of new segments in India. So effectively, what happens is you would have seen that in the last 10 to 15 years, with the growth mushrooming of so many journals and articles, publishing houses which have just come in because they thought that this is a new segment which exactly could be tapped. And that exactly started with plagiarism and all that. You have different type of replications that have started coming in, and that exactly also resulted in uh, situations where the government decided to, the academic entity decided to come up with certain type of norms, that these would be the journals which exactly would be categorized and would be acceptable. So if you've got to publish in these journals, only these would be acceptable. So you see, there are so many different elements that exactly are coming into play, and a discussion of this magnitude requires, I would not say just about 4 or 5 of these elite panelists that you have selected, but you require a larger frame of reference to discuss as to how to look into this, because this is a burning issue. And I would say that so many people would be interested, especially from the perspective of the people who are writers, who basically are producing these works and would like to get these works published. So effectively, first orientation, as I would like to say, is that you have to decouple it with this force that either you publish or perish. But you have to have an interest in an area if you really want to produce some sort. I have seen the people publishing in so many varied areas just to increase their numbers. And that exactly they would try to better themselves, get their rankings, get their ratings, get their citations. If that exactly is the orientation, then we've got to introspect and look at the problems with the people who exactly are the consumers of the information which they are co-creators. So as rightly said that uh, by my friend Professor Mohan Agarwal, that consumption-oriented customization happens to be one of the key takeaways that we need to look into how to handle this sort of a situation, aligned with the area of interest. Also, if you're looking at from the orientation of the publisher, you see, at the level of the reviewers, the idea is, as Professor Shankaran had said, that the rejection rate is very, very high. What really happens is that the editor, their base job is to see that, find the mistakes and clip it. So effectively, you've got tons and tons of articles coming in, and they're going to be a team of people, and there's a lot of time which exactly is spent, 3 reviews, 4 reviews, which is happening per article. And then by the time it reaches the editor, that is the joint editor or the editor, you see, it takes a lot of time to publish. And there exactly is another sort of a challenge which is there. And there also is one of the reasons where the cost of publishing also goes up, which exactly is uh, a very important challenge, because that exactly results in transmitting it down to the consumer or the reader. That is exactly where you got to pay such a huge amount of um, money in order to read your own article. So effectively, we need to try to see that the business model that needs to be evolved, of course, with the introduction of the internet and the structural reformation transformation, as Professor Shankaran was saying, that we need to look into how to go about this entire sort of process, so that information is disseminated to everyone at the lowest possible cost in huge volumes, and everybody gets to read. Now, also, I would like to focus on some other areas um, in this same context of problems and prospects. That is the type of work that exactly gets published. Why exactly something gets published, and why exactly is it that something does not get? Most of the time, we're seeing that we are looking at work which involves mostly uh, the questionnaire-based studies with a very low sample size, and we basically are not. We want to be in a hurry to get it published. Rather, it is the interest that exactly that needs to be there. If you're really interested about something and we really follow it over a period of time, we try to look at exactly the different type of studies that have happened over a period of time, assimilate it, collect it, and then really pursue it. I think that exactly is one of the key reasons to get things published in most of the places. And publishers also be very happy to concentrate with niche journals for niche writers and niche authors. Yes, looking at these micro aspects of the publishing, these exactly are some of the key areas where most of the authors are trying to concentrate and should concentrate, rather than trying to look at a varied uh, um, um, uh, spectrum of topics to actually get their articles published and increase their numbers, increase their citations, and do career progression. Because that exactly is one of the things which exactly results in creation of these so-called publishing houses, which exactly are doing that. So this exactly is a very important aspect which has to be looked into, and the peer pressure has to be done away with. Generally, what happens is that we exactly our productivity as authors or as writers are measured in those terms. That is the number of papers we have published or in what journals we have published, and that exactly has to be done away. Because this sort of decoupling only can create a good work, and all some of the reasons why the problems which exactly are there at multiple levels can be done away with. Another important aspect that I would like to highlight is in terms of the things that I have seen, and as has been discussed in certain um, platforms, that we are generally focusing or collecting articles on the basis of some static models. That is, more and more number of times we are citing the existing work, the different type of processes, the models, and then replicating it into more type of works. Rather than, we should be looking at more of a longitudinal type of a study. Pick up the thread from some area which exactly has been done, and try to incorporate it over a time frame. Use simulation, modeling, look exactly at the reasons why exactly certain things are happening. What exactly are the reasons behind different type of behavioral elements that exactly are being exhibited. So these exactly would be creating new knowledge rather than replicating or just increasing that amount of work. These are some of the aspects which need to be incorporated in our recognition process, incorporated into our educational system, which exactly is going to create real worth So it has to be quality, not quantity, which exactly forms the basis for quality publishing. And once we exactly come up with this orientation, this mad rush would do away with, and most of the problems which exactly are there would automatically be resolved. If not minimized, they would be at least they would at least be minimized. If not addressed fully, they would at least be minimized uh, from the publisher's perspective. Also, we would be looking at a certain important aspect as suggested, that using multimedia, the room for blogging and vlogging, bloggers coming into play to put information in the different format accessible to the entire audience, creates a novel idea for information dissemination for the masses. Because definitely looking at our geopolitical scenario and the demographic frame, the economic and the psychographic frame that we have in our domain, we exactly are consumers who exactly are not very uh, affluent, and definitely we would like information to be free. So yes, I agree that if it could be assimilated, it can create a new parallel. And again, when you create a new stream into the scheme of things, it will always address the existing problems, which exactly is beyond the scope at our level to solve, rather than just recommending. So with these as some of my orientations, I would like to uh, hand over back to uh, Professor Mohan Agarwal, Professor Shankaran, and back to Dr. Dalgoel about my take into this entire context. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asif Ali Sayed, for giving your views. And Dr. Sayed has elaborated the publishers' rules, the problems, and he's also giving some solutions for the prospects of the publishers. But for the paucity of time, I would not like to summarize now because we have one more guest. But thank you very much, Dr. Asif Ali, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my next guest, and he's Mr. Rakesh Kumar Jha. Mr. Rakesh Kumar Jha is the civil service coach. He is the managing director of Discourse Academy, Delhi. He motivate and give interviews, guidance to UPSC aspirants. He is visiting faculty of political science, general studies, and English language at different reputed institutes. He is doing talk shows for All India Radio, Akashvani at New Delhi. He is called upon by various media organizations to participate as an expert for their live shows on various national and international issues. He conducted and moderated several seminars, including National Seminar in the World Book Fair 2016, New Delhi by National Book Trust, Government of India. He has published several books and written articles in reputed publications. He is co-author of India-Mauritius Bilateral Relationship, recent initiative. Now, welcome Mr. Rakesh Kumar Jha on our show. Mr. Rakesh Kumar Jha, you have heard our earlier panelists, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, Professor Dr. K. Sankaran, as well as Professor Dr. Asif Ali Sayed. Now, they have given their views from the academic side, as well as they have suggested what the publisher should do. But you have published books, and you are from the other side, I must say. We would like to know from you the publishers, problems, and prospects. Mr. Rakesh Kumar Jha, please.
Yes, good morning to everyone. Dr. Asif Sahab, Sankaran Sahab, Mohan sir. Good morning, namaskar. This is the knowledge. I want to say that when a village boy, I came to Delhi University 20 years back. I really faced a lot of problems when I wanted to buy good books. So what happened? We used to buy a Xerox copy from the stalls, and also that because that we can have a different kinds of books at our home and we can study good books. And there was a library, still it is a library, CRL, Center Reference Library, Ratan Tata Library. So basically what is happening, it is a debate over hegemony between West to East, because that why we want to create a knowledge society. Basically, we all want to have a knowledge community. as you have rightly said that before you 400 years back when publishing industry started, and Mohan Agarwal sir has said that still this trend is going on, and that is the problem, that most of the scholars, teachers, students, and even the mentors, professors, lecturers are they are going for the Western journals, that my publishing works have been published by the Oxford, or I mean to say Harvard University, and different kinds of things. And so this trend is still going, I'm sorry to say. Second thing, that at the community level, because it is all about the resources also, that what kind of resources the publication industry is having, what kind of resources the government is having. I am taking an example, National Book Trust of India, NBT. I am one of the authors of NBT also, National Book Trust. It comes under HRD Ministry, how it is Shiksha Mantralaya. What is happening? Most of the people who are the authors, they have the same trend, that how my articles would be published. I am sorry to say, because ultimately everyone in this world, more than 7 billion people are living. Out of 7 billion, some of them are who are intellectuals, they are going to publish their works for the sake of their a kind of on kinds of benefits, and everything is out there. As far as vernacular press is concerned, vernacular, I mean publishing industry is concerned, all of them are trying to uplift the education level. I'm going to give you example. The students who are studying at grassroots level or village level, when they come to city to aspire to become an officer, IPS officer, they do not have, or they did not have good books at that time. When they come to the city life, they said कि मैंने तो सर ये book पढ़ा है, and they have a good knowledge, a sparking knowledge. So what we suggest them, you go to that particular book stall, get the Xerox copy of this particular book, and just read it, and they qualify. A number of students are qualifying from different parts of the country. So my point of view is that, because it is the publication industry, the main role of publication industry is to inform, to educate, and to entertain by saying different kinds of things and all. So the main challenge before the Indian publishers and the authors, that we are not having a particular kinds of things. I mean to say the books, journals, and everything. As far as as some of the speakers, Mr. Sankaran sir was saying, or Mohan sir, Asif sir, no, why we want to publish our articles in a particular magazine? Because that marketing, and they are very clever since our independence day, they are very clever in the marketing, doing things. And even after coming the Google, can Google solve all the problems? Can Google guide everything to the student? If they can do in the medical fields or in the education fields, they can do anything. Then what is the use of Professor Sankaran, Dr. Asif sir, Mohan sir? If it is there, yeah, information is bombarded. And that's the point, that that when the Oxford publishes dictionary, we were not educated, we are struggling with the words, that what are the meaning of the words, that if a word is there, the 8 dimensions were there, whether it is adjective, whether it is the parts of speech, and the origin of the words, and different. So Bhargav had published, Bhargav is from UP, they had published, and we studied from the Bhargav dictionary. If I go to study the Rain and Martin, I am sorry, I cannot understand the Rain and Martin, but I studied one book from my vernacular language. I studied tense. I studied, I mean to say that knowledge is not about a kind of elitist thing. It is a kind of dissemination of information, and definitely the Twitter and Facebook and all the social media, or even Google itself, they have a one kinds of say, but they cannot educate the people. I am sorry to say, because ultimately it is the knowledge community, it is the intelligentsia, it is the school quality, it is the research scholars, it is the person, and that is the value. Even Robert is coming. Now we are talking about the Robert and artificial intelligence. They are again going to attack the marketing policy, that AI, artificial intelligence, will do each and everything at the airports, at the stations, hospitals, and everything. So I am here to say that we all are concerned about the problems, and definitely we should concern, but at the same time we should also become the part of the solution. What we can do, what Gandhi used to say, what we can make the change. If we can make the change, and a lot of teachers, educators like me, we are publishing our own books. I have published one book, synonyms and antonyms. The foreword is written by the ex-CBI director, Dr. Trinath Misra. As a student, when I came to Delhi University, I started word. What is the meaning of composition? What is the meaning of, I mean, little words. And then I made a note. And this book is a very book. More than 10,000 and 50,000 students have studied and they have qualified different kinds of examination. This is the beauty of an authorship of the vernacular language, or the beauty of the student who is coming from the village. And a lot of students are not studying high kinds of books, high rated books, I mean the branded books, because they cannot afford one thing, and second, the language bar is there. Argumentative Indian, you could have understood about the Amrit Sen said that it is very difficult to find out the publish the books. Even the novel authors are getting struggling with the publishing of books. If you are, suppose Mr. Goel is going to publish a book, it is very difficult because they do not have the sellability in the markets, and market force are very crucial in this sense. And I mean to say that all Indians, all the students should come together and they should publish their own books. They should publish their things in a particular mediums, so that vernacular language will be uplifted, because it is us to promote the things, and most of the things are not being published because of the market forces, and a lot of things are available in the village area, in the towns, in the cities. I have personally experienced that if a good educator or an author is going to publish in a big media houses, they are not going to publish because they are different kinds of things. So it is my, and that's why the government is also taking up very seriously. NBT is going to publish a lot of books out there, and I mean to say the knowledge community can be based upon our own indigenous things. And here is the importance of the language, whether it is English or it is German or it is, our own personal languages kinds of things. And that's the point that I want to make. And I'm also saying that National Book Trust of India is going to, every year they are going to have one kinds of, the training programs for the book publishing industries and all. You can also have a lot of suggestions. You can also put out the suggestions before the governments and on way. And one more thing, that these commercial things have taken up nowadays. The children books are being published in the different kinds of plastic coated audio visuals. Yes, definitely we have to accept the new technology, but at the same time, it has been the trend also that we all are going for YouTubes and all. We have seen, Dr. Goel sir, we have seen in this last 1 year that the students and the children are stuck to the TV and mobiles and all. They are blank. They are blank. They cannot write an essay paper. And essay is also one of the important aspects of the learning process. How to communicate, how to write, so this thinking can come only when you read the good books, only when you study line between lines. It is said, we used to say in the class that you line between lines. Why we are not producing poets? We are not producing high class. I mean, this is a challenge before us, that the quick things we cannot do, because our India is scattering maximum number of youth in this world, and that's the point, that we have to tap their information, we have to tap their things, and we have to enlighten them. We have to give them particular things, and education is the best medium to liberate everyone. It is the education through which we all are sitting together. We have to thankful to our society, and that's why I have given a slogan to the railway ministry: one journey. I am saying to everyone, one journey, one book. We have to create the, like we are giving pillows and blankets to the birds, so the railway ministry should provide one book, and we can have, at purchasing 1 rupees, we can just
Simple
purchase one, so
news.
the long distance hour can become completed, and you can read more and more books. And that's why we have to do, whether it is in any language, anything. And not only, we are also creating library movements. Andhra Pradesh is a state where maximum people are visiting library. When USA, gone are the days when there were a post office like kinds of things. So it's the same thing we are creating through knowledge mission, NNP knowledge mission. Through this mission, we are saying to the different bodies, we have created 3 libraries even in the police academy and different parts of the country. We are now creating NNP mini library, in which we want to give books at the police station, Delhi police stations, and other parts of the country, even in the at the medical stores in the ministry. So the people would come, they could have their own choice, and they can have their own things and all. So this is from my side, and I have to say that it is us to give the light, and I am also very enlightened by listening my co-panelists. They are very well experienced, and they can correct me if I have said anything
Okay.
wrong. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks, sir. And
Thank you very.
one thing I want to say: an author never dies. An author
Okay.
never dies. And one more thing regarding the Kalam Sahab, I am the great fan of Kalam. जग में जब तू आया था, जग हंसा था, तू रोया था, बसर कर तू ऐसी अपनी जिंदगी, जग हंसे तू रोया है. जब डॉक्टर कलाम साहब ने भाषण दिया था वहां मेघालय, वहां नॉर्थ ईस्ट में, तो उन्होंने इतनी अच्छी बातें कही थी. तो वी हैव टू क्रिएट नॉलेज सोसाइटी.
Okay.
थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rakesh Kumar Jha. Because of the paucity of time, I would not like to repeat what you have said, but yes, what you have said makes some sense, and I'm sure that your views will be taken seriously by our panelists, as well as all the viewers, as well as the government also. Thank you very much, Mr. Rakesh Kumar Jha. Think like a publisher, not a marketeer. Now, my question goes, although the time is less, but still I would like to give one minute each to all of you. My question goes to Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal. Dr. Mohanlal Agarwal, what type of innovative marketing you would like to suggest for the publishers, because you are a marketing person, so that the publishers can come out with this difficult time? 1 minute only, please.
No problem. I think, thank you very much, because even 1 minute is quite enough for something that I want to say. And what I want to say is that, like, the television has become a reality television, and reality television has become more popular format of television viewing, probably there could also be a reality publishing. And that reality publishing is where the voice of the customer, inclusion of the customer, participation of the customer is as much there as there is the producer. So I think we need to identify the formats in which the voice of the reader, voice of the consumer is also there in this particular medium.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Agrawal. Dr. Shankaran, do you think that in this digital time, publishing a journal or book is viable?
Yes, I think it is vital.
Viable, sorry, viable.
Viable.
Means,
yes, it is viable. For instance, I was just yes, it's a very good question, because if you see some of the new startups, for instance, if we can, I know one publisher called Notion Press. Recently, they got funding. Now, what do? They do exactly what Professor Agrawal said about involving the people. It's a self-publishing house, and I have myself published one book because nobody was willing to look at this, something that was not falling into any genre. It was philosophical, it was academic, it also had novels. So I kind of, I gave a lot of my life to do that, including getting out of a job just to complete a book. I mean, just coming from, seriously from within. So I think there is scope for such publishing.
Okay.
So we need to look at new models and find out. And I think there's one thing, last thing, very quickly. What publishers can do is approach these large conglomerates and get the voice of different people in different departments, different businesses within the enterprise. I think there's a huge scope for this, and that'll be funded by the company, because there's a lot of good voice that's happening, but we don't get to see them in day-to-day work. So there are many such possibilities if only we aggregate properly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now my question is to Dr. Asif Ali Sayed. Dr. Asif Ali Sayed, we have seen our publishers, those books are generally read in India, are generally the international publishers. Even the journals, even the researchers wants to publish their articles or research work only in the international journal. We are 1/7 of the world population. Why not we are promoting our own journals or our own publishing house? 1 minute, please, only.
I would say that you exactly touched the core. The opportunity lies in the challenge that is there. And the vacuum, let me tell you, has already been created. There is an environment which has been created, which exactly we are fulfilling. We have already started creating the digital contents. If you look at the government's initiative of the Swayam portal or the EPG Pathshala portal, look at the number of topics, the contents which exactly have been created, assimilated and telecast, and look exactly at the the media confluence, which exactly has been created for participating knowledge with the entire worldwide audience. I'm not saying just the Indian audience, exactly happens to be a new medium which exactly can be tapped, provided a proper structure is evolved. And of course, a team of people come into play, and then they leverage this sort of a platform for creating an alternative, which can be like our contribution of the vaccine to the world. We can also create this sort of intellectual vaccine for the entire global community. So
Okay,
that exactly is the answer.
thank you very much, Dr. Syed, for international intellectual vaccine for the world. Now, my question goes to Mr. Rakesh Kumar Jha. Do you think government can play important role for saving the conditions of the publishers today? 30 seconds only for use.
You know, I can say they are taking, but you know, still a lot of things have to be taken in the future. So that's my say. Yeah. And
okay, thank you very much. And so today you have seen the intellectuals, the experts, the experienced people. They have given their views, and they says there is no dearth of intellectuality in India. Only thing is that we have to change. We have to come out with new ideas. We have to run and as per the pace of the what is changing world, emerging world, and new innovative ideas, new innovative marketing has to be taking place. We have to go to the digitization, and we have to see. And according to one of the panelists, yes, country is doing that. And if we, our authors, our researchers are going to promote in a proper way, then definitely this industry can be salvaged, and the publications or the publishers they have a good prospects in future. And today's program, which has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon se Samvad Saruka News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to enlighten you every day with a new topic. And tomorrow, media conference with Lal Goel, the topic is a new dimension of healing. Our panelists are Dr. Rajiv Anand, Senior Psychiatrist and Marriage Counselor, Mumbai, Miss Anjali Parmar, Certified YPV Healer and Senior Trainer, Mumbai, Miss Preeti Mistry, renowned energy wellness practitioner, energy alchemist, soulful speaker, writer, and intuitive arts therapist, Mumbai, as well as Mr. Roshan I. Mansukhani, renowned music therapist and motivational counselor, Mumbai. So please tune